CHRO is a senior leader with more than 3 decades of experience in managing human resources across industries and geographies. In his current role, he drives LTIMindtree, ESG commitment and corporate social responsibility. He is driven with a passion to help young talent. Everybody, put your hands together for the moderator, Mr. Paneesh Rao, Sustainability Officer, LTIMindtree. And sir, I would request you to please invite on stage the fellow panelist.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Do we wait for the others to come or do we start? We start? All right. My pleasure to invite my esteemed panel members in alphabetical order. AnandDHRuv, Associate Director, Human Resources Entity Data Limited. Mr. Aniruddha Khekale, Executive Vice President and Head HR Business Excellence and EHS, CG Power and Industrial Solutions Limited, please. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ganesan P., Senior Vice President, Human Resources and Administration, People Interactive. Mr. Pramit Sen, CHRO, NSDL. Mr. Rajesh Srivastava, President and CHRO, Welspun Group. Ms. Sonica Aron, CEO, MarchingSheep. Hello. Thank you. Before we start the session, I thought I'll take a dig at the definition of what employee engagement means. It describes the level of enthusiasm and dedication a worker feels towards the job. Engaged employees care about their work and about the performance of the company and feel that their efforts make a difference. My first question to AnandDHRuv, in your opinion, does employee engagement contribute to the overall organizational success? How can organizations create a sense of purpose, meaning for employees to heighten their engagements, and what is the role of the people function in employee engagement?
Great. Thank you very much for this wonderful question. Good morning to everybody, and thank you, Gainscales, for considering us worth to share our experience, our thoughts on this topic. When we talk about any organization, of course, every organization main objective is profit. Today, we see a lot of automations, we see a lot of processes, everything which is being driven to be able to improve the productivity of the organization. At the end, the human drives the all automation which we have. No machine can work independently. And that's the reason we always say HR, which is now human capital, is one of the most integral function of the organization. And I always keep on saying that. Hats off to everybody in this room. We all have slogged a lot, and we all have proved that even HR understands finance, even HR understands P&L, even HR understands business, and that's the reason in the last 15, 20 years, what HR, which was more of a IR function, more of a time office and a policing function, today is a core function. A business meeting is incomplete without the HR. And that's the, today's reality, and hats off to everybody in this room, and that deserves a big round of applause for everybody, because this is what we have proved and we have earned it. So coming back to the topic, so as a human being, as a human touch in the organization plays a very important role, there are certain rule books, certain assumptions, which in PhD, which we do, known as hypothesis. A happy employee makes a happy customer. A happy customer makes a happy organization. A happy organization makes a happy employee. So if you see, it's a circle. And anywhere, if the circle breaks, that's going to impact the overall organization. No automation will work without human being. No human being will work without motivation. Without motivation, they'll not be happy. If my employee is not happy, my customer is not happy. That's how this circle keeps on running continuously. So, to make my employees happy and to make them feel engaged, I need to understand the employee lifecycle management, and on the basis of employee lifecycle management, I need to curate experiences for all of them. Now, when I say experiences, I'm not talking about the check in the box approach. For example, आपका communication training हो गया? आपका grooming का training हो गया? You know, those days are gone. Today, things are moving at a very, very fast speed, and we need to engage our employees. Somewhere in the race of completion and meeting targets and too much of automation, we forgot the concept of engaging them. Engage them, keep them happy, even at a lesser salary, they will work for you for a longer time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Anand. You know, in my experience, the employee engagement starts from hiring right work allocation, promotion to the deserving people, appropriate measurement criteria, awards, rewards, open house, effective communication and timely communication, involvement in CSR. These are things that other speakers also spoke in the morning session. Big on D&I, milestone celebrations, suggestion schemes, IDPs, etc., etc. So my next question to Ganesan, what do you do for the best results? Please share some best practices of rewards and recognitions for the employee engagement, please.
Thank you for putting me here on this stage, and I'm really happy to be part of my fraternity here. And I think, as Dhruv already mentioned, this fraternity here today, more than running just an IR function, actually runs business, right? And are essentially responsible for the success of business. Now, I think I would take a step back to first understand that employee engagement starts right at the recruitment stage, right? That's what we called out now. Today, most organizations and most candidates whom I interview mutually are interested in first understanding the culture fitment of the organization. Now, am I getting into the right space is what people want to know, and am I getting the right person into my space is what the organization wants to know. So there is a lot of understanding right out there. Now, talking of rewards and recognition, gone are the days when we used to only celebrate people getting rewarded for working in a company for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. Today is a day of instant gratification. So rewards and recognition needs to happen on the fly, right? Everything is short, everything is instant. People enjoy things that are very fast, right? Test cricket has given way to IPL and T20, right? Instead of 5 days, people enjoy the 3.5 hour spectacle, right? In a football match, rather than the 90-minute game, people enjoy the penalty shootout, right? So people want results fast, right? Today we have 27, 28-year-old guys becoming CEOs. Nobody wants to wait till the age of 50 to become a CEO. So rewards and recognition is not mainly about doling out vouchers and money, and it's more so about recognizing the talent of the organization, the value that they bring to the table. I come from a consumer tech organization, and here essentially, I have people who are in the age group of 25 to 30 who are aspiring to become a CTO at the age of 35 or 32. So they are looking for an express path. It's not even a fast-track path. They're looking for an express path to grow. Each one wants to be the head of engineering. Each one wants to be the head of marketing by the time they're 32, 33. So how am I recognizing this talent? What is the path I'm providing for this talent? And even if I give them the necessary growth, right, how can I make it sustainable is one of the challenges most HR leaders are facing, right? I possibly have a CMO of, at the age of 31 or 32. Now, after that, what do I do with him, right? What's the path for him? right? Recognizing these challenges is something that's very, very important. Now, when I hire people, especially when I hire senior leadership, now, what is the kind of recruitment process that I'm following? Am I making, the right choices? Looking at, somebody in the morning was talking about, it's not about hiring talent for now, it's about looking what do I do with the talent in the long term. What do I do with this person in the long term? So as an organization, we take our time to think through, when I'm hiring talent, how am I going to keep him engaged? For example, I was, interviewing a senior data science guy last weekend on a Saturday. So my conversation was, okay, you come on board, you do all this for me. Over the next 6 to 8 months, you have a lot of things to build, right? But after that, what? How do I keep you engaged? What is the path that you're looking for? Seriously, he didn't have an answer. Neither did I have much of an answer. So am I hiring the right people? So the right engagement happens when I know whether I'm hiring the right people, whether they're going to be part of this culture or are they going to be looking for something that's exceptionally outside this culture, right? So we take our, in my organization, we take our decisions, we take time over our decisions, I would rather say, rather than just pulling in people, rather than just filling positions. So when I, plan a hire, I also need to look at the path, right? Today, no longer are people, while people may talk about, incentive plans, people may talk about, LTCIPs, retention stuff, ESOPs, blah, 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 that's all okay. But the true engagement comes when somebody sees that there is something in it for me over the next 3 years, 5 years, I am going to get somewhere. That is true rewards and recognition, and that is a culture we've imbibed in our organization as a best practice. Because if I don't see this person, especially at a very critical role, emerging to a particular level over the next 3 to 5 years, then I don't think I should be rushing into that hire. And again, talking about instant gratification, which I started off talking about, is, my techies have a different, approach to rewards and recognition. My marketing folks have a different approach to rewards and recognition. My product managers have a different approach to. So I can't, do a one-size-fit-all. So we, analyze, where these folks come from, what is the path ahead for them, and build an R&R program that makes sense to them. They are aligned.
So Ganesan, I understand different people, different strokes. If I can ask you that if you're hiring right in your organization and assuming that all are of the same quality and caliber, and it's also said that you recognize people in public, you reprimand them in private.
True.
How do you manage the expectations of those who are recognized versus those who haven't been recognized? And how do you manage the motivation of those who haven't been recognized? Do you do that in rotation?
Well, I think that's a very, if I may take the liberty of saying that's old school. It's very important to set expectations right at the outset. So when I do an R&R or when I set benchmarks for R&R, it's very important to communicate very, very transparently as to how someone can reach somewhere or how someone can gain X, Y, Z in terms of, whether it's a monetary benefit, whether it is a promotion, whether it's a growth benefit, or how soon I can get to a particular place. It's very important to communicate. For example, last year we launched a fast-track career growth program for some of our sales guys. We went through an extensive communication program. It was very, very important to communicate, how people can get there. Right through we had leaderboards, right through we had, published as to how people were faring. So there was no chance for, somebody to feel, disgruntled for not having got there because it was absolutely transparent. So transparency plays a very, very important role in ensuring that the R&R framework works well.
Very good. Thank you. It's a cliche that employees join organizations and leave managers. My next question to Pramit Sen, do you witness this in your organization? How can leaders and managers foster a culture of employee engagement within their teams, beyond compensation, beyond promotion, beyond assignment promises? What role does the leadership play and what style is good in engaging people?
So thanks Paneesh. Good morning, everybody. Thanks to the organizations for having me here for this panel discussion. So interesting question. So, we have been in a phase where we have earlier seen that employee engagement was always treated like an activity. But now times have changed. It's no more an activity. It's a proper process. When I'm saying this, people earlier used to feel that, if I'm taking my team out for a lunch or a dinner, people will feel engaged. Those days have gone. It's an organization full of human beings who need to be treated like humans. What they expect, the minimum is respect. Yeah. Recently, I'm sure a number of you might have seen a video which was viral on LinkedIn and all other social media platforms about a senior bank employee, in a morning review call, how he was actually interacting with his own team members. So where is that respect? I didn't see that. And that's what is important today. So we need to respect individuals as individuals. There are three things, according to me, which is extremely core to the entire essence of employee engagement. One, that's care. Second, connect. And the third is coaching. So when I talk about care, so, when the employee joins the organization, so my fellow panelist actually spoke about, how engagement starts from the, word go, that is from the time of interviews. So once the person actually joins us, so is he actually felt that he's a part of the organization? Does he feel important? And that's where care actually comes in. Then when we talk about connect, so in terms of communication, when we are connecting with the people, I have actually seen many people who try to talk to their bosses. The bosses don't have time. They need to seek appointment through the secretaries. I don't see any kind of engagement there. Yeah? So that connect is extremely, extremely important. If you're not able to connect with the employees, with your own team members, how will you understand what's the need of the hour? What does that employee need from you as a leader, as a manager? And third, the coaching. So once the employee actually gets into the organization, what he or she is expected to do is to fulfill the KRAs and the KPIs. But are the KPIs being explained to the people well? Are they shown the path as to how the person will be able to achieve the goals which are actually set for him or her? That is what is actually required to be done. Personally sitting with the person, the employee, making him understand what the KPI is, how does it actually culminate into the entire vision of the organization, helping the person understand how to achieve the targets step by step. That's what is important. And I think having these three things together, care, connect, and coaching, is what, makes a leader.
And do you think it's happening enough in the industry now? I also firmly believe that unless you explain the big goal to the people, unless you tell them what's that little speck in that big goal is their contribution, performance towards the organization's achievement, people don't have which way to go, how do they contribute to the organization. Therefore, the engagement isn't there. Therefore, they don't find a purpose. Do you think that's happening enough now?
I don't think it's still happening enough, but I'm still positive because the journey has started. People are positive. They are looking at data. So there are so many tools today. So people are looking at data, introspecting, coming up with different, incentive schemes, personalization of data, personalization of incentives. Those things are happening today. So that's why I'm positive, although it's not happening fully today. But yeah, I think another 3-4 years down the line, I think it will happen.
Anybody else who wants to share the experience on this?
So Paneesh, coming to your question which you asked a while ago to Pramit, things are happening, but if you see, it's more from a reactive approach. Something happened because of that negative incident. We learned from our mistake and we did that. And that's how today we are clearly communicating the expectations right before the pre-candidate stage. You know, we talk about employee life cycle from hire to retire, but today the experience and engagement has gone beyond hiring, beyond pre-hiring, beyond the journey of the candidature to the employment. So many a times the expectation setting activity which has been done now proactively is actually the outcome of a negative experience, and that's how now we have started doing it proactively. While we have a long way to go, but I'm very happy that a lot of work is happening on this direction, and that's why today, even at the time of interview process, candidates clearly demand for a clear job description. And in case they find anything here and there, they shout out and they share their expectations, which is very fair ask by the candidate, because at the end, the challenge which I have seen, which most of the managers and even HR contribute to, that is we hire a horse and we make him work like a donkey. Whereas we don't hire a donkey for a donkey.
You bring out a very good point. We celebrate success.
Yes.
And we don't talk much about the failures. We push it under the carpet. Now, how many of you in your organizations talk about the failures and learn from the failures in public? Not in closed room meetings, but in public.
At least in my case, I have done that in past. Yeah,
Sonica,
Sonica,
you
please.
have something?
So I'll just address a couple of things which have been said in the panel first. So there was a question on R&R earlier. So I have been first from the industry, so I have worked in a lot of companies. I was heading HR for an organization in 2012, and then I jumped into the consulting fray in 2013, and today we are working with a lot of organizations across 80 countries. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have seen with reward and recognition is that R&R does not speak to performance management. So when we are recognizing people in R&R and that does not show in the form of any kind of an increment or a promotion or a rating in performance management or appraisal at the end of the year, people lose faith in the R&R. And it's a very, very practical process issue which impacts employee engagement and trust. So that is one very, very critical thing for HR as custodians of HR process to remember. That R&R and performance appraisal cannot be seen as two separate processes. That's one. Coming back to the question on managers, I think an employee experiences an organization through managers. HR being held responsible for employee engagement is passé. We can give managers guidelines. We can give managers processes, tools, and a whole lot of other things. But when an employee walks into an organization or is working from home, who is an employee interacting with the most? Their manager, their supervisor, or their peers. And today, organizations are investing a lot in raising the capability of managers on how to deal with people, how to build psychological safety in teams without compromising on accountability. And that is one thing which has been seen as a trend over the last 1 year. If there is one thing that organizations are investing in, Amit Chincholikar spoke about, if you're doing an investment or an initiative, it needs to solve a business problem. The business problem that is getting solved by investing in managerial capability today is that when you build psychological safety, which balances accountability, you are building high performance teams directly impacting business results. You are not seeing employee engagement. Just one sec, Paneesh, I'm sorry. That's one thing. The second thing that they are investing in is by creating HR as not a support function, an enabling function. Enabling function does not mean that HR will go and beg finance or business for funds. So that is all I wanted to say. So strategic HR business partnering so that we are enabling employee engagement and we are not held accountable for EHS scores.
Thank you. You bring in a very interesting point. In my 32 years, I've been through the yo-yo of, performance appraisal linking to rewards recognition. Then there came a time when there were constraints on budgets and salary increases didn't happen, and they said performance appraisal has got nothing to do with rewards and recognition. They wanted to separate it, the bell curve was removed, etc., etc. Now you talk about bringing it back together because one links to the other. And I have also experienced in my companies that, if you aren't going to give any salary increases, why are we doing an appraisal? It sets an expectation with them. Does anybody want to share of what you went through in your experience of these two being coupled, then being separated, and then being coupled now once again, as Sonica says?
So I would, as Sonica was speaking, I was just thinking about an exercise that we did 1 year back, because it's very important, as she said, HR becoming an enabler. In recent times, we've seen managers wanting to be, the good guys and shooting off HR shoulders. Managers have become cheerleaders. We personally sit through the appraisal, done by managers before passing it on to the employee to ensure that the manager is doing a very objective appraisal rather than, saying, well done, keeping my team members in my good books, making them feel good when they're actually not meeting the company objectives or the objectives for which they set out. So this was a very difficult exercise. Because most of the guys that we were dealing with had done this, they said that seen it all, done it all over the last 15 years, what are you trying to change? So it was very difficult to change their mindset, if I may say, to get them to understand that cheerleading is not the answer to, attaining the organizational objectives or an employee's objectives. They just felt, whenever I sit through an appraisal, when I say appraisal, a compensation review, the recommendations given by the managers are saying that I need to give him a salary correction because he's a critical resource. Not whether he has delivered on his OKRs, not whether he's adding value to the organization, not whether he's actually upping the game as far as whatever he's supposed to be doing. But rather what we see is because he just feels that the common statement which we actually threw it out of the window was nahi dega to chala jayega, right? So that is something that we had to really fight through, and we've kind of reached a space where we are willing to get talent on board that is really aligned to organizational objectives. Managers who understand that the threat perception is gone, irrespective of whatever. I remember in 2020 when the whole world was going for digitization in the time of pandemic, my managers used to say, "Arey ye chala jayega, arey ye chala jayega." This is what they used to say. But then we as an organization aligned that whoever is going to go are going to come back because the culture in the organization that we have is supreme compared to anything else outside. And trust me, in 2021, I signed off on 10% of, in a particular span of a quarter, 10% of my hires were rehires, right? People who couldn't face that culture outside came back to us. Not because of the compensation we offered, but because of the culture. And it's very, very important to have your compensation, your ratings and everything. As Sonica said, R&R and appraisal cannot thrive separately.
Actually, the Garvapsi is a very nice thing. They stick with you longer than other people.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you, a follow-up on what you're saying, that I have also experienced managers say, look, this moderation of your score is not my job, it's HR did it using some computer language to do it. They also say, salary increases are not in my hand, HR decided that. Do you think the time has changed now for people to say that, look, I own the rating, I own the compensation revision that you got, I own the bonus that you got, and I will take care of my people, and I will ensure that the attrition is managed. And even if a person leaves, I take the responsibility of the person. Because I also remember in my days when people said, look, give him a rating, don't give him a compensation, or give him a compensation, don't give him a rating. So they were actually trying to decouple that, but do you think managers are now mature to take the responsibility of the consequence?
It's taking time to that shift. Okay. Today even...
So basically you are saying it's not happened. Let's move on to the next one. You have something, Sonia?
Yes.
You say that when I ask you my next question, this is to you.
Okay.
That, I have also experienced that the most engaged, the happiest, and the most rewarded and recognized, giving rude surprises at times, right? Just when we thought that we have taken full care of the person. Companies often survey employees' perception, their happiness index, sometimes for accreditation, sometimes for certifications, which gives the engagement scores that were talked about this morning. How much do you believe in that when it happens? What tools do you use? In addition to that, you please also talk about the previous topic that you were wanting to talk about.
Yeah. So I believe that, I'll first address that, all right?
Okay.
So I believe that we as HR professionals have a very strong role to play when it comes to kicking back the accountability to the managers. When an employee delivers on their KRAs, when a team performs well, who gets the benefit of their performance? It's the manager. Their rating goes up, their bonuses go up. So they are the ones who should be holding the responsibility for the rating, for the bonus, for the increments. Why HR? Why should HR be the bearer of the bad news, and why should HR be the, not the bearer of the good news? Now, we do a lot of strategic HRBP certifications in partnership with FICCI. My question to every SHRBP who wants to come and get certified is that why don't we push back the managers to do these conversations? Because when it comes to the hiring decision, the final hiring decision, it is the manager who takes it. But when they want to put somebody on PIP, they want HR to do the conversation. Right? So where is the ownership? It is something like कि मैंने बच्चा पैदा कर दिया, अब पालेगा भगवान.
So in that context, I also want to share.
Coming back to the second question.
There's something very interesting. I also experience people coming and saying, this guy is no good, we need to terminate him. This guy is no good, we need to put him on a PIP. This guy is no good, we need to extend his probation. And this went on for many years. One day I called somebody who was a frequent cribber of performance of the team members, and I said, who hired them? He said, I hired them. So I said, then who should be sacked? Really? And believe me, that was the last day the person actually came back to me complaining about the performance of the team members. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for that. So I think today we as HR professionals need to take that power back, or rather grab that power. Because I think we have proven enough during the COVID transition when we supported business. If finance is considered the right-hand man of the business, HR is very much the left hand. We are custodians for possibly the only asset that business has which appreciates with time. Rest everything else depreciates. So let's grab that. That's number one. Now coming back to the tools that gauge employee engagement. For me, all of these tools are like saying, बच्चे ने exam दे दिया, कितने number है? Right? To me, in very simple language, an organization might have the best product, they might have the best technology, the best service, but who goes and sells that product? Who goes and runs or delivers that technology? Who runs your state-of-art machinery in the factories? It is people. Employee engagement for me is when an employee is willing to deliver to their best every day. And when that happens in front of my own eyes, when in front of every manager's eyes, that is where the tire hits the road. That to me is real-time employee engagement. And you can sense it. When an employee is not engaged, when they're shirking responsibility, when they're saying not happening anymore, you can sense it. And it is happening real-time. And a manager can sense it. If they are genuinely engaged with their team members, a manager can sense it. An EHS score and tools and AI and everything will give it to you much later. But आपका employee तभी के तभी disengage हो रहा है, आपको तभी के तभी उसको engage करना है. उसके लिए managerial capability बढ़ानी है. I'm sorry, is everybody okay with Hindi, English? Right? So बहुत simple, सरल भाषा में बोल रही हूँ that it has to happen then and there. And for that, a manager is responsible. HR can enable that capability.
Thank you. You know, one such company came to me one day and said, look, this is a virtual, you know, every minute, every hour kind of a measuring tool. And we will install that. You will have a monitor. And, you know, it's like the toilets that you see in the airports where you click the button, happy, unhappy, with the cleanliness, etc., etc. There is going to be a board like that. And people, if they are unhappy, they will press that for whatever reason in an organization. And you can monitor that on a screen. And we use that on a trial basis. Believe me, the blood pressure of our HR folks went up multiple folds, and we said withdraw it because they're going to die out of heart attack. Next question to Rajesh.
I'm so sorry. Can I just add one point? If you don't?
You may. We just got 8 minutes.
I'll not take more than a minute.
Sure.
Just adding to what Sonica said, you know, we have those AI tools that get employee feedback and get the pulse and all of that. She hit the nail on the head. Most of the time, the feedback that we get is, my manager talks to me about my OKR achievement, my KRA achievement, what I've done and what I've not done. My manager doesn't talk to me how I can grow. What's in it for me? What's my personal growth?
Engagement is all about that. I agree with you. Unless somebody shows interest in me, that place is not for me then.
Absolutely.
Rajesh, cash, pat on back, instant reward, daily, monthly, best performer, reward points. I have an experience of a nephew of mine, you know, who got some reward points. And one day we were desperately trying to reach my sister and him, and they were not available. And then we got to know that they had gone to some white goods shop to buy a refrigerator. And we said, why all of a sudden? And very proudly, the mother said that my son got performance points in his company, and we went to cash it, and we bought a refrigerator out of those points. So there was a family involvement. To you, what do you think is the right way to reward people and also include the family in rewarding people?
Thanks, Paneesh. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, audience, for being very patient. I may take a little longer than what is supposed to have been prescribed time. So, I expect that I have your concurrence. So there are a lot of things which has been talked about. There are two things which we have been discussing. One is around the engagement. I'll take that question, but let me build the context that where I'm coming from. So there is about engagement, and there is also about the HR role. And may I invite, so I'll possibly share something as a theory, as a principle, before we get into a brass tacks of actually doing it. And we'll take you back, some of you might have read, the classic difference, a context between capitalism and communism has been around this whole thing that capitalists actually squeeze the labor. And the communism, and if I think there was a concept called alienation, which was typically in German, Enttausserung, Verauserung, and Entfremdung. There is only one English translation called alienation, and that Marx wrote that capitalism actually creates alienation of labor force. Classical theory of social change, cyclical theory, we are coming back in a capitalist society talking about, or a corporate world talking about engagement, when Marx says that total man is someone who works 6 to 9, goes in the evening, have a walk, have a dinner, reads a book, sleeps. We have been talking about right in the morning when Naren talked about flexibility, work-life balance, and things like that. I'll also take you back to a basic theory. All of us have read Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X basically talks about policing the labor. Theory Y you create an environment, allow them to flourish, they will produce you best. Amit talked about solving a problem. What is the problem engagement serves? Productivity. I don't think that we would disagree with this, that any engagement that we do ultimately has to measure some kind of a productivity, whether it is in terms of retention, whether it is in terms of hardcore delivery on numbers, or anything around the whole thing, staying talent, creating succession pipeline, a whole lot of things. In that context, you look at the total man, then it is not only the employee, how I perform, and I'll share with you a few examples in my previous organization. Back in 2003, when I was one of the flunkies in the HR team, and we were a rapidly growing organization, practically we used to work 7 days, and I must share with you that that is the best time that I have, one of the best time that all of us that point in time had, and we still have our own alumni association run and driven by all of us, when we worked 7 days a week practically. And the example is this: my boss told me that the CEO wants something, and we were hiring 50% attrition. This was an insurance company that I was working with. In the evening, I decided to finish the CEO's work and send it, and I thought that, okay, fine, after 7:38, I will do this, send it to him, and then go. So 8 o'clock, roughly around 8 o'clock, I finished the job. And I'm a smoker, so one of my colleagues and said, okay, now job is done, let's have a fag and go. I came back to close my laptop, and I saw he has responded. And I told my colleague, oh my God, he has responded, now another half an hour gone. I still quote that example. What he has written, can anybody guess?
Why are you working so late?
Yes. The one line was, why are you so late at 8 o'clock? Go home. We will talk in the morning. I still remember that. I still kind of quote it as an example. Now, what Sonica has been mentioning is about the managerial capability, that sensitivity. I don't think that you needed too many frameworks, to be honest, Paneesh. All of us have experienced in our home, in our daily lives, in our friendships. Probably we might have to just rekindle that in some sort of a framework. You call it engaging family. In one of the organizations, we had this kind of a system, and we still continue to do. We are building right now in Welspun. You call it Welspun alumni group or whatever. Imagine if I have left an organization, but my parents' marriage anniversary, you get a card or a greeting from the ex-employer. How will you feel about it? You and your parents. Is it possible as a HR to do this? If my son, who is in 10th, possibly gets a best wishes from my previous employer or my current employer with a pencil box or something like that, wishing you best, how will you feel about it? So it is not a rocket science. You can build all around of technology. AI basically talks about basic principles of human connectedness. And if you are able to think through it, I don't think that there is a challenge around that.
Excellent. Thank you. So you're saying basically to be human. Well, since you talked about technology as the last word, I've experienced desk HR professionals who sit at their desk and try to manage human resources function. Somebody talked in the morning about people walking the floor, being in touch with people, etc., etc. I must tell you that there was a story that came in social media. You also must have read it, but I repeat. So there was a person who resigned from an organization after having worked there for 8 years. And there were a flurry of emails to him saying, why are you leaving, why are you leaving? And the person did not respond. HR finally decided to walk to his desk and speak to him and say, we have been writing to you, you haven't been responding. We want to talk to you and find out why you want to leave, if we can do something to retain you. And the person said that, you haven't met me for 8 years, why do you want to meet me now? Having said that, how does technology, digital tools impact employee engagement? What role can technology play in enhancing, motivating, and increasing productivity? Aniruddha, Khekale.
All right. Good. Now this is not working. Okay. Is this better? Okay, no, this is working, I think. All right, thank you so much. So the feeling is like, you all went to eat Pani Puri ever? Feeling is like everybody in front of you is eating, they're not finishing. You're waiting for your turn to come. Right? So you are also, I want to eat that Pani Puri. Okay. But But thanks for the opportunity. There is a lot of benefit in going last, because then you're listening to everybody's view. You're kind of curating your thoughts. You're also learning something new, and thinking beyond, what's your common perception. So, in fact, just to answer, before going to answering to his question, a few thoughts. I think I picked a few words, beyond what they said. Sonica talked about psychological safety. And frankly speaking, to me, that is a base. That is how your organization should always be, right? Whether, whatever you do, that's the basic thing, number one. Number two, somebody talked about reward and recognition. I place recognition, before reward. Because reward, again, has got some, materialistic value. Recognition is truly internally felt. And that is where perhaps I will, and somebody talked about, I think Dhruv talked about culture, right? And early engagement and all. Early engagement is part of culture. I think culture is very important. And what really drives engagement is the whole feeling of being involved, right? Whatever you do, whatever we talked about are more like, day-to-day examples while you are interacting and dealing with people and their problems, right? Everything is reactive, like Anand said. How can we be more proactive and involve people? If you're not involving, then they feel like, oh, I don't belong here, right? Everybody wants to be built, to carry that feeling of being built, being a part of the company and being a part of the team. And for creating that belongingness, what is important is sharing, right? We say, right, sharing is caring. Sharing what? Sharing good news, bad news, troubles, problems, issues, success stories, everything. When a manager, HR, and the management, I'm using three words very carefully, because three different distinct entities, people, employees look at them like that. They look at manager as a manager. They look at HR as a HR. And they look at management as a management end of the day. Some invisible God who is making decisions which are conveyed to them through HR, right? So that's the way it is. But all these three entities need to really work together and ensure that employees are engaged and involved in everything that is happening in the company, right? We go to a temple, right? We go to a temple, everybody in and around that campus feels connected to the God. There is no differentiation, right? In terms of high pot, low pot, those are all results-oriented things. What is important is everybody feels connected. Likewise, if I'm running a company of 10,000 employees, 20,000 employees, and everybody feels connected with the organization, that is the success of whatever we do in terms of, engagement, right? I didn't want to answer that question of technology, because technology is a tool, right? How do we really reach to people? And for example, only one example comes to my mind is we as a family are connected, right? WhatsApp is a tool. Video call is a tool, right? So we are not driving tool for the sake of tool, but my daughter initiating a call from US on a WhatsApp group, suddenly out of the blue, that is what really, helps us. Many times we get too much carried away with the technology and tools that is around us. If my manager, let's say for example, he is not available on phone, he is not available on WhatsApp, he is not available on text, he is not available on MS Team these days after 5 p.m., you feel disconnected with the individual, right? So technology has to be used that I am available. Why I am available? Not because I don't care for my work-life balance. It is because I care that you may need me at the most difficult moment that you may be facing at that particular point of time. I think that is how I think we should use technology, number one. Number two, again, spread. Everybody in this room is using technology, frankly speaking, so I'm feeling very awkward what to talk about. But I think to manage your breadth and everything, that's very important. Rest, I think, technology cannot replace human touch. When a manager says, guys, we are in a great difficulty, we are in a dip shit, I need your help, we may have to work, on this weekend, but we can perhaps, get a pizza which we very well deserve. I think that drives better engagement and better commitment. That's my sense.
Thank you so much.
Time's up. Sorry for taking a lot of time.
That brings me to a point this morning. We heard somebody say that they hire on mobile. Niren said that. Honestly, I believe that best practices to me may not be the best practice to you. So please use your discretion whenever you implement, because I honestly will not join a company if they were to hire me on a mobile phone through some interaction that is not even human without a voice to it, right? So it could be a very different segment of people. So basically, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, what we want to say is that culture matters, being human matters, being in touch with people, and not being remotely away from people. Like, you know, the example I gave you, joining through a tool, appraisal through a tool, feedback through a tool, reward through a tool. You know, promotion letters are not given anymore by hand by the manager. You know, they are given through an email or some system, so on and so forth, including termination happens through a system, I think is the most inhuman practice, how much ever advanced we may be in terms of technology. So that's the conclusion. Thank you so much for your patience. The lady has come to throw us out of the stage. Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm so sorry, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. Hope you enjoyed. We had so many more questions. Wanted to give you guys an opportunity, but you know, we took away all your time. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, sir. Somehow we need to manage the time. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for understanding. And I would request Mr. Ravi Dubey, Head Marketing UKG India, to kindly join us on stage for felicitation. Let's start with the moderator. Kindly felicitate Mr. Paneesh Rao, Chief Sustainable Officer. Can we have a huge round of applause? Sorry, my bad, Mr. Ravi Pandey. Moving on. Mr. Rajesh Srivastava, President and CHRO Welspun Group. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us at the panel discussion.